Take a person, take a story, take you on a journey. It's your take.
On today's Your Take, I talk to a man with a creative flair and passion for performance, acting and music. From a young age, my guest demonstrated a love for creativity, acting in school stage productions and studying performance at college in his home city of Bristol. My guest went on to study and graduate from Bristol Old Vic Theatre School. After graduation, he went on to appear in the Royal Shakespeare Company's Comedy of Errors, the TV series Above Suspicion, and the films I'll Sleep When I'm Dead and Red 2. My guest is the narrator of the audio version of Bristol musician Tricky's autobiography, Hell is Round the Corner. He's also a keen musician who fronts the Kirris Riviere Blues Band and the Future Blues Project. From the influences of the Mississippi Delta to performing on the live music scene, I talked to Kirris Riviere. We discussed Kirris's early life and education, his break into film and television, working with the British director Mike Hodges, what blues music means to him, playing Glastonbury Festival, and of course, his long-term career goals. A very warm welcome and good evening on this late Saturday evening. Kirris, thank you kindly for joining me on Your Take.
Wow, thank you very much, and what an intro. Sounds like I've been a very busy boy in the past 20 odd years, but yeah, no, thank you very much.
I'm interested to speak about your journey, your career, your love for performance in many different areas, and we'll obviously talk about that during our discussion for the next 60 minutes.
Yeah.
But before doing so, I always kind of like to go back to your childhood, your upbringing, and simply wanted to start by asking you when and where you were born, and just kind of give us some background into your early life, who your parents are, what they did for a living, and do you have any siblings?
Yeah, well, to start with the latter, my dad remarried, so my siblings are all up in Birmingham, you know, and an incredible extended family as well. Really, you know, it was just a really nice, you know, way of, I suppose, acknowledging the fact that I didn't necessarily grow up with them, but we've remained very kind of close, you know, throughout my life. You know, and certainly the past couple of years, you know, we've got even closer. So yeah, the extended family are all up in Birmingham. My mum was born in Dominica, and so my father was born in Dominica as well. And I was born in not such a exotic place as Dominica or you know, Roseau, which is the capital. I was born in Bristol, in St. Michael's Hospital. Probably on a rainy day, you know, because it rains quite a lot here, obviously. But no, I'm a fully fledged Bristolian.
Can I ask what year you were born?
1978. Yeah.
We can obviously talk about your love for creativity, but I kind of want to find out where that all came from, and I wanted to find out where your love for cinema and music, where it actually comes from. Did it come from a family member? And I want to find out what films and music left a big impression on you as a young man growing up.
Yeah, it would have been the first film that really left a huge imprint on me was Do the Right Thing. So it was a Spike Lee film. I think it was around about 1988, and it was a really powerful story about kind of like, you know, racial tensions and kind of police brutality, and nothing much has changed, has it? Which is really unfortunate. But also what the film managed to do is also create a kind of like lightheartedness and a relatability. It was very relatable to to the viewer. So obviously I'm not from America, but it just felt like it was very familiar. I felt like I was a part of the story, kind of thing. And I suppose I was blown away at the time, even though I was probably about 10 or something like that, 10, 11 when I saw it. There was something within the film that I just thought, wow, people like me on TV, as well on the screen, which was quite a rarity in itself. And I remember just feeling, oh my gosh, this is such an incredible film, such an incredible story. But obviously I didn't really know the kind of like political connotations at the time, but there was something about it which really grabbed me at the time.
From an early Spike Lee film, which was an influence, and you said something that you could relate to at a young age as well, that was making a statement, a political statement as well. On the flip side, where did the kind of music influence come from? Was there music being played in the family household? And when did you kind of start going from just listening to music to actually wanting to pick up an instrument and perform?
Well, I've never played an instrument, but it's always been through my voice, really. I would definitely say it was listening to my granddad's records when I was younger. He was a huge fan of blues music and R&B and soca, which is like calypso. He was also a huge fan of reggae. So it was those kind of influences that really kind of like affected me in a positive way, obviously. My mum as well, she absolutely loved music, but she was more of a pop listener. She used to listen to a lot of pop music, but she also liked her lovers rock, which is like a style of reggae. And she also really enjoyed the kind of like modern R&B of the 80s.
From the love of creativity, and you've spoken about your musical influences, we've touched a little bit on the filmmaker Spike Lee. I want to move on to your education, because you went to Ashton Park School in the city of Bristol.
Yeah.
Were you happy at secondary school? And would you say, looking back, were you a natural academic? And how do you kind of look back at those kind of schooling years?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, no, I would definitely say, I wouldn't say I'm an academic as such, but I always had a fascination of learning, learning some stuff that I'm interested in. So, for instance, for music, I always wanted to, and this probably goes back to when I was younger as well, but I always wanted to know where certain, styles of music comes from, and, the kind of like, the demographic of where it comes from as well. And why did people, choose to sing, the songs that they sang in that way. And obviously it was always down to culture. It was always down to, circumstances that people found themselves in, and that was something that I was really interested in. So I remember really enjoying music, as a subject. And then I suppose that kind of cross-pollinated into drama as well. So it's the kind of like ability to be able to, look at a character and then put yourself in that character, and I just found that fascinating. So, I used to love, reading some of the books, the books that I could read, because I'm heavily dyslexic. But the books that I understood and the books that I got, I just found it very fascinating. So, so I had a love for music, drama, I quite like geography as well, because again, that's something which was, it's based on kind of like facts, I suppose. It's the country's definitely there kind of thing. So, it's I quite like studying things which I was interested in, which I know sounds a bit obvious. You're not going to be interested in stuff that you're not. But yeah, it was those three subjects which I remember being really excited to do as a child back in Ashton Park.
If we stick to your schooling years, interestingly, you started acting in school productions from around about the age of 14. Can you recall some of the early stage productions and what it was about acting that you found fulfilling, and ultimately in the end made you decide to pursue a career?
Yeah, absolutely. So my first ever character that I played was Mr. Bumbles in Oliver Twist. And it was at a time when I didn't quite understand what I wanted to do. I was around it was around the age of 13, 14. A lot of my friends were going into the construction business at the time, which I didn't have an inkling. I didn't want to be a bricklayer. I didn't want to touch cement or anything like that. But because a lot of my friends were kind of interested in that, I was kind of like leaning towards the possibility of it. But then it was my drama teacher, because she knew that I had I really enjoyed drama. She said, "Oh, why don't you act in the school play?" And I just thought, act in a school play, So after a certain amount of bullying, I actually did it, and I just thought, I'll give it a go, I'll give it a try. And as soon as my feet touched the stage, obviously the line learning and the putting on the costume and all of that obviously comes into play beforehand. But as soon as the curtains went up and I was on stage, there was something that happened that moment, and I never looked back. It was just electrifying. It was the energy, the toing and froing of energies from, and I still remember it. I still remember that feeling now. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm here, I'm on stage, and it just absolutely felt right.
It seems interesting that your drama teacher was almost a mentor, and I suppose to get over some form of anxiety and fears from bullying, you had this kind of escapism to be another character, to perform a play on stage to a live audience.
Yeah.
And it seems kind of interesting that your kind of career almost begins when you decided to study performing arts at Filton College in Bristol. At the same time, you become a member of the British Youth Theatre Studio.
Bristol Youth Theatre Studios. Yeah.
I wanted to ask what you learnt from those experiences during your time there.
Yeah.
And what was your goal? Had you decided that, was there a specific area of the arts you wanted to focus on? Was it, acting? Was it, musical performance?
Yeah, no, that's a really good one, because when I was 19, I was in a blues band by the time I was 19. But before then I was mainly acting. So certainly in my Filton College days, it would have been primarily acting, which I was doing. But there was always I never really wanted to try the musical theatre route, and I suppose the reason is because for me, singing, like I was saying before, singing always comes from a place, and it has to have kind of like some historical meaning behind that. It has to come from a soul. It has to come from a moment in time, for me anyway. That's why I love jazz, I love blues, I love country, even just music that tells a story and comes from a particular source. Whereas I haven't really found that in musical theatre, so I've never really played with the idea of becoming, let's say, a musical theatre actor. but yeah, there was always that kind of toing and froing of, is it going to be acting? Is it going to be singing? You know, and I suppose what's kind of developed is both worlds kind of, you know, becoming a reality.
That sort of early education at Filton, at college, kind of learning the skills to perform in front of a live audience, how to kind of develop and create a character. What do you kind of think you learned as a performer from those kind of that early period in sort of early education?
Being true to the character that you're portraying. You know, making sure that you do the work, the research. You know, why is that character saying their lines the way that they're saying their lines? It's not just about, you know, learning their lines. It's about learning, you know, their footsteps and learning where they come from and learning, you know, the situations that they're in and their wants and needs from each scene. You know, there's always a reason as to why the writer, you know, has chosen to tell the story in the way that it's chosen, or in the way that is obviously written. You know, so why is that? So it's looking into the subtext of the lines. You know, what's in between the lines, and usually that's where the true story lies.
I wanted to talk about your progression because we've spoken about your time at Filton College, learning performing arts, and then you went on to go to the prestigious Bristol Old Vic Theatre School. I wanted to ask a little bit about the enrolment process, what that involved, and the challenges, but what kind of ultimately made you decide that you wanted to enroll for the Bristol Old Vic?
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely say by the time I was, like I said, 19, you know, I was in a blues band, but then I also kind of knew what I wanted to do. And that was certainly become a professional actor. So I was also working at a bar, the Bristol Old Vic bar, at the time. And I had the incredible opportunity to talk to many different actors that came and went, you know, the shows that came in. I was able to chat to them. You know, they were giving me advice even, you know, many of them saying the same thing, make sure that you have a second bow, you know, a second string to your bow even, because usually you'll be playing that more. But also, you know, if this is something that you really want to do, then by God, pursue it, you know, because nobody else is going to do it for you. You have to do it. So, and also, you know, they were just saying, well, you're lucky because you're in such an incredible city. You know, Bristol, the Bristol Old Vic is an amazing institution in itself. And if you're lucky enough, you know, to get in, then why don't you audition? Why don't you try and audition? And it was about the second or third actor that told me that, and I just thought, you know what, this isn't the first time. You know, there's the actor, you know, those actors have given me the same, you know, similar advice. So I just thought, yeah, okay, I'll try it. I'll audition for the Old Vic, and even if I don't get in the first year, then I can use that as like a mock year. You know, I can use it as, you know, practice, and then, you know, it might take me 3 or 4 attempts. But yeah, I would love to be able to, you know, study at the Bristol Old Vic, because clearly it's, you know, it's one of the best drama schools possibly in the world. You know, so when I got in the first time round, I then said to myself, okay, that's amazing, that's great, but how am I going to afford this? And you know, if it wasn't for the scholarship, I wouldn't have been able to, obviously, you know, kept my place. I wouldn't have been able to have kept my place there because I wouldn't have been able to afford it. So I'm really, really, you know, I'm eternally grateful to have had a scholarship as well.
We'll talk a bit about your time there, because it's interesting that you were working in those surroundings, you said, as a bar person, and you were speaking to actors and actresses and performers who kind of gave you that advice to audition. But how would you describe your training and overall experience at the Old Vic, and what did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about the craft of performance, and did you meet any fellow students or teachers that you formed a close relationship with, and you kind of felt inspired by them?
Yeah, absolutely. I was lucky enough to have been taught by a lecturer called John Hartock, and John Hartock is absolutely incredible. He's gone on to obviously direct other shows, and his knowledge about within Shakespeare is incredible. And it was less is more. He always used to say to me, less is more. I have a tendency to be very expressive, but he said, because of your stature, because I'm nearly 6'4", I'm like 6'3.5", whatever, and obviously quite a big guy. And he said, just stand on stage and just feel the stage, and once you're in that moment, you don't then have to do all these lavish gestures. Just be yourself and just be in the moment. And I always remembered that advice, and that's something that I certainly took on board. Another thing about drama school is it tends to break you into little pieces. You really start to explore yourself in ways which is sometimes really uncomfortable, but in a way, when you're exploring those uncomfortable situations, then it's almost like that's the building blocks, because you tend to find your most creative moments when you're at your most insecure moments, because then it's a way of trying to get yourself out of it. Put that on top of a character, and that character is always very interesting to look at, because you're seeing somebody just trying to navigate their way through life or through the story, which is always more interesting than just having somebody have knowing that they're just saying their lines and there's nothing else to it. So yeah, those are the major things that I learned during my time at drama school.
We'll talk about graduation and going from your time at drama school and then kind of going out into the real world, I guess, that kind of progression. After graduating from the Old Vic, were you represented by an agent or an agency?
Yeah.
And when did you become an equity member? And I kind of want to discuss some of your early working paid roles, which included your role with the Royal Shakespeare Company in Comedy of Errors, and then making the transition to TV with the TV series Above Suspicion. And then, of course, used to be Bristol, of course, BBC's Casualty as well.
Yeah, indeed. So certainly, I was quite fortunate enough to have quite a few, I suppose, agents that were interested, after graduating. So then I decided to move to London and really just like try and live, as much as I can, within this new world that, I created for myself. And it didn't go so well. It didn't go so well because I was a new father as well. So I had my son back in Bristol, and I was missing him, and I was missing my family. And I suppose because of that, the auditions, when I used to go to auditions, for instance, I wasn't particularly engaged, because I felt a bit sad. I felt quite homesick. So yeah, I moved to London. It lasted for about 9 months. And, I suppose it was only when I decided to move back to Bristol, that's when things changed for me. So yeah, for instance, my first ever job was working with Clive Owen on a film called I'll Sleep When I'm Dead. And that was mind-blowing. That was absolutely incredible. And that came along because I had interest from a casting director during my graduation. And she said to me, there's a film that's, being made, is in the process of being made. So you might have to wait a few months, but, you fit this particular part. So I will be, coming back to you with a potential audition, once obviously it's in place. So I always had that buzzing around in my mind, and I was thinking, gosh, you know, is this going to happen? Is this going to actually be real? You know, but I still had to take it with a pinch of salt, obviously, you know, because, you know, it's just one of those things that usually doesn't happen. But to my surprise, it kind of did.
Almost perfect timing, because that leads to my next question, which is you getting the role as the character of Big John, going back to 2003, and working with a prolific name in British, you know, filmmaking, Mike Hodges, who made the brilliant Get Carter, and then the cult sci-fi film Flash Gordon as well. You mentioned about the audition. I wanted to ask you how you got the role. Can you actually recall the audition? And what was it like working with that stellar cast? You're working with Clive Owen, who kind of at that time was almost becoming a little bit of an A-list Hollywood star. Charlotte Rampling, a great veteran actress. Jonathan Rhys Myers, and one of my favorite actors, Malcolm McDowell.
Malcolm, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Must be quite mind-blowing, I'd imagine.
It certainly was within that pause, you know, I just did, because it was literally beyond words, you know, because I just done 3 years in drama school, and, you know, this opportunity represented all the things that I've worked, you know, hard to achieve. And, you know, not just me, but obviously everybody else, you know, that was in my year, you know, and when it came through, I was literally just speechless. I remember going to the audition. It was just Mike Hodges in his office. It was a surreal moment where he just sat me down. You know, we spoke about many different things, because he's like a fellow Bristolian as well. And, you know, he then said to me, "I really like your spirit, Kirris. I'll give you the part." I was like, "What?" You know, I didn't even, you know, I remember I didn't even read the script. It was just like, we're just talking about anything but, you know, but I just think, I don't know what I don't know. You know, I was going to say, I just think it was because he might have liked, you know, my energy or whatever it was. But no, I mean, you know, I don't know what it was, but it just made sense to him for me to play that part. And obviously I wasn't going to say no.
Yeah, of course, you land the role,
Yeah.
and you're working with all these, you know, well-established names in the film industry, particularly in the British film industry.
Absolutely.
But obviously, from landing the role and then, you know, going on to actually, you know, work in front the camera, work with these fantastic cast. Was there kind of a nervous side as well? Because, you know, when the cameras were ticking, were you thinking, this could be my only opportunity to do this? What if I make a mistake? And I kind of also want to stem that back to what you said earlier from the very beginning of a little bit of a lack of confidence during your younger schooling years. And you mentioned being taunted by certain kids at school. Was that a kind of some anxiety as well? And
always there, you know, I suppose flavored with a little bit of imposter syndrome as well, which is always, you know, something that a lot of Black actors, you know, go through just because of the kind of, you know, racism within the industry itself. You know, but I do have to say, at that particular moment on getting that part and then going on set, you know, it was such an incredible moment, and everybody was so given, because they knew that it was my first stab at, you know, at professional, you know, acting, straight from, you know, fresh from kind of like drama school. And yeah, you know, for instance, Clive Owen was just an amazing person to work with. He just continually was talking to me, and I just felt very kind of, you know, comforted, and I felt, you know, like an equal member of the cast. You know, Jeff Bell was another person that I worked with, and he gave me his number. You know, we just all had a complete and utter ball. It was such a good experience. And the director himself, he's just such a humble guy. And because of all that, in the middle of it all, there's obviously a story to tell, but because I just felt so kind of grounded and so confident, even though, yes, there were nerves, and of course I felt slightly out of my depth sometimes, but I always felt comforted in the knowledge that I was supported.
From that particular moment in 2003, I'm going to skip the clock forward 10 years and move on to another film. You appeared in the sequel to Red, which was called, obviously, Red 2.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about the role and what the experience was like on that particular set? And which of the main cast did you get the opportunity to work alongside?
Absolutely. I mean, again, it's one of those moments, isn't it? It's just, my gosh, I was working with Helen Mirren, and I had a day and a half, with her, but also I was sharing the room, the green room with her and John Malkovich.
Oh, wow.
yeah. So again, there's just so much to learn. I came in thinking, oh my gosh, what is there to talk about? How do I talk to those kind of people? I was absolutely almost petrified, really, because I knew that my scenes were with Helen Mirren, so I knew that obviously I'd be spending time with Helen Mirren, and again, it was just, hi, how are you doing? Have you done many films before? Yeah, I've done one or two. Oh, that's great. Are you fresh from drama school? No, it's been a good part of 10 years, and and then all of a sudden we just just like what I'm doing with you, I just had a really nice conversation, and it was just a flowy conversational day, just us waiting to be called up on set, and then when we did our bit back in the green room. But then another thing as well which struck me is the fact that they had their own trailers, so Helen Mirren and John Malkovich, they had their own trailers. They didn't need to stay in the green room with me, and if it wasn't for those two, then I'd probably have been in that room more or less by myself. You had the odd like daytime day walker that was that came in, or like an extra, but I would have been primarily in that room by myself. So they obviously made a conscious decision to actually stay in that room, and support the other actors. So she's one of the most gracious actors I've ever worked with in my life.
From your experience on that film set and the previous film we'd spoken about, the Mike Hodges film, I'll Sleep When I'm Dead, you've obviously worked with some big A-list stars, but ultimately, I guess we all come from, we could come from similar humble upbringings as, I guess, an A-list star. But did it kind of give you some insight into the film industry, and that, do you think it's kind of an industry that looks out for its kind of fellow professionals? And do you think it is a very kind of collaborative, and do you think it is the kind of business that, not in all cases, but tries to help and support, particularly young aspiring actors trying to make it like everyone else?
I'd like to say yes, but it's not always the case. No, that's I suppose that's why it was so refreshing when I had the opportunity to work with people that, well, not people that, but the actual stars themselves, and then discover that, oh my gosh, they're so gracious, they're really nice people, they're humble, they're down to earth. Because the industry isn't known for its support, support of fellow or supporting or budding actors. It's more or less known to spit them out. So when you have people from that particular level of success, still remaining humble, still remaining themselves, then it was a very learning experience.
Wanted to kind of come on to my next question, because early on in the interview and our discussion, you mentioned that during your early years, schooling years, that many of your kind of friends went on to kind of work in construction industry or 9-to-5 kind of office jobs, but you were content that you wanted to follow your passion, which was always creativity. It was performance, music, or doing something creative in some form or some capacity. But how challenging has it been making a living and getting regular work in film and television? And of the projects you've worked on so far, which have been the most enjoyable, and why?
I mean, I haven't really strayed too far from Ashton Park, because I worked there as a cover supervisor, and that is such a rewarding job, on so many levels. I mean, not only does it allow me the flexibility to carry on with my own dreams, but it's also giving back to the school that allowed me that opportunity in the first place. As well as inspiring, I'm hoping anyway, I hope I inspire them, as well as inspiring the new generation, the people coming up, the people that are going to be inhabiting the world that we leave behind. I mean, I would definitely say one of the most fulfilling projects for me so far is Manhunt. So Manhunt was filmed in Bristol. It's got Martin Clunes, so he's like the main character. And again, it was one of those situations where it felt easy, for me to play a police officer, because even though I was working alongside Martin Clunes, he was another gracious actor. He was another person that didn't make it hard. He was just such an open and friendly guy. And then the added bonus was the fact that I was then featured on the trailer, which lasted quite a long time before the actual first airing of it. So the build up was a quite a long build up. It was a good month before it was aired, and to my surprise, I made the trailer, which was really good exposure. So yeah, I'd say so far that's probably the most enjoyable project that I've been involved in when it comes to acting.
I wanted to steer away slightly from film and television and move on to another project which I believe is quite close to your heart, and that was being a voice narrator for the audio version of Bristol musician Tricky's autobiography called Hell is Round the Corner. Firstly, I was going to ask, do you know Tricky? And from your own experiences on the Bristol music scene, did you meet him whilst working on the project? And how inspiring did you find his story? Were there any similarities to your own life experiences?
There was huge similarities to my life, to my own life experiences. I mean, when I was approached by Chatterbox Studios, which was the place where I recorded Tricky's autobiography, it was a moment where I wasn't in a good place. I unfortunately my mum passed away, and it was only, it must have been half a year or something like that. So I was still trying to find myself. And then I remember, reading a little bit, an extract from his autobiography, and I read about his turbulent life, and the similarities between me and him was actually shocking, because he was in mourning a lot of the time. When he made those incredible songs, he was in mourning, and he was wishing for an alternative reality where his mum was here, you know, where he grew up with her, where he knew her, you know, where he got to know her as a person. And you know, that's where the kind of like, I suppose, you know, that's where it becomes like relatable to myself and, you know, and Tricky. But yeah, he had a very interesting life. Put it that way. You have to read it or listen to it yourself. But my gosh, there was never a dull moment.
You mentioned about the similarities, and I kind of wanted to, if you don't mind, touch on losing your mum at kind of a relatively young age in your life. And I can certainly sympathise, having lost my dad around about 5 years ago. My question was, were you very close to your mum? Was she kind of an influence and somebody you found inspiring? And death is a kind of hard thing to take, and we react to it in very different emotional ways. But how did you what was kind of your emotional state when you heard the news and when that happened?
I'll definitely say it colors your world. When you know, when you lose somebody as close. I was very close to my mum. You know, it was me and my mum, you know, versus the world at one point in my life, you know. And yeah, it literally colored my entire world when she passed, even though it was kind of expected, because it was a gradual process. I never truly believed that it would ever happen. And you know, when it did happen, you know, a part of me is still kind of pinching myself now, you know, and it's been a couple of years, but yeah, it was very, very shocking. It rocked everything, you know. It rocked the foundations of my own reality, and it feels like I'm still, you know, I'm still living through the tremors of that now. And I can't ever see those tremors ever stopping, really. You know, at the moment it just feels like that's my new reality, if that makes sense.
Doing a profession where you're in front of the camera or performing on the stage, where you're kind of a focal point, and I suppose to some element you need to be confident. Having lost your mum, did you kind of want to hide away from that a bit, or did you kind of want to carry on performing to kind of just escape the reality of what had happened?
It made me initially just want to close off from everything, but then what it also gave me was this. It was almost like an explosion of creativity. You know, everything that I wanted to do, I just thought, God damn it, I'm going to do it. You know, if life is so fragile that 1 second a person that could be, you know, that's a part of your life is here. And she was just so loud, and she was, you know, she was vibrant, and she was colorful, and everything was, you know, so wonderful. You know, when you're in her presence, you know, it was, she used to like going shopping to places like, you know, Asda, getting her 2-for-1 bargains, and, you know, a smile that can, you know, light the entire world, kind of thing. And, you know, the you know, the most mundane things that people tend to do, you know, on a daily basis, she was so grateful that she was able to do them, you know. And that kind of rubs off on you. You know, when somebody has got that amount of love for life, you know, that love for life kind of rubs off on you. And when that person is no longer there, then I suppose, you know, that polish kind of like has rubbed off a bit as well.
We'll move on to music, because we haven't touched upon your music kind of projects. We've spoken about your music influences, where you first heard music, but you're a keen musician, a lover of blues, and you're in various bands, the Kirris Riviere Blues Band and the Future Blues Project. How were the bands formed, and what is it you love about the blues, and who would you cite as kind of your musical influences in kind of the blues tradition?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of feels, it feels like an honor to be able to sing the blues, to be honest. I mean, like I said earlier on, it's not just about listening to the music. For me, it's there's a history of it. And for me, I heard blues throughout my life. So you could have a stressful week, and there's nothing like singing the blues and dancing, and then having the crowd hearing hearing the music and the toing and throwing of energies. But I'd say a person that did it to its maximum was Muddy Waters. He's certainly the biggest influence for me. The fact that he, when he came over here, he influenced so many people, and people just loved his energy, he loved his style. It wasn't he wasn't just a blues singer. It's almost like he transcended the genre itself, because he was so damn cool. People ought to be him rather than anything else.
Music, like your performance work, has created a lot of opportunities for yourself. Can you briefly talk about the experiences of performing on the Bristol music scene, and discuss some of your musical collaborations, and also your experience of playing Glastonbury Festival?
Yeah, so Kirris Riviere Blues Band basically came from an older band that I played with called Morganfield, obviously after McKinley, Morganfield, Muddy Waters. And so that formed, that was formed in 2008. And from that point, we were playing all around Bristol. We ended up playing in Bath, a place called the Bell in Bath, and then that opened the doors to Glastonbury. So I think the first time I played there was about 5-6 years ago. Played there a good few times now. I think about 3 times in total. And it's such an incredible. I mean, have you been to Glastonbury yourself?
I'm a huge music fan, but I've been to so many gigs, but I've never been to a music festival, which I kind of feel a little bit ashamed to admit that. But I've never been to Glastonbury. Never.
It's one of a kind. It literally is one of it's one of a kind. It's incredible. It's the energy there is electric, and everyone, virtually everyone that's there are there to listen to music, and have a great time. So it's a guarantee kind of thing, in that respect. And yeah, there's nothing quite like playing in Glastonbury. It's magical.
Shortly, I move on to the final questions, and we ask all Your Take guests these quick fire questions to find out things you like, find out a little bit of things maybe we haven't learned about you from the interview, but we ask the same guests all these 13 questions. Okay. But before we do that, I wanted to finally ask you, Kirris, what does the future hold for you in film, television, musical projects, or anything else creative wise that you might have in the pipeline?
Yeah.
And lastly, during our discussion, we've heard about the ups, the downs, and maybe most importantly, the sacrifices that you have to make to pursue a dream and a goal, particularly in a very hard industry to kind of break into. So what would your advice be to anyone wanting to do similar things to work professionally in the creative industries today?
My advice would certainly be, to follow your dream, because you clearly only live once. But it's about being realistic as well. I would say so. Certainly have something else to fall back on if you possibly can. If you want to be an actor, but you love, I don't know, accountancy. That's just something that just came off the top of my head. Then potentially become like an accountant as well. An accountant that can be flexible. So if there's an audition that comes up, for instance, you're able to then take the audition. So yeah, I'll definitely say it's about, you know, being, you know, just being realistic, because it's such a hard industry. And you know, if you don't have a plan B or a plan C, then you know it could be a really hard life that you've chosen for yourself.
Kirris Riviere, these are the final questions that we ask all Your Take guests, from your words of wisdom now to finding out things you like, things maybe you don't like. These are kind of quick fire questions. Here we go. Number one, Kirris, what would you say is your favorite pastime?
My favorite pastime would be writing. I absolutely love writing, and I love, you know, I really enjoy watching you know, TV programs, usually things which are streamed, and then kind of like retelling my own story through what I've seen, if that makes sense.
When you say writing, is it in
Yeah,
the form of writing scripts or
writing scripts,
writing songs as well?
writing songs as well. Absolutely. I during lockdown, I was fortunate enough to. I always wanted to be a writer, so I was fortunate enough to have a bunch of friends who then said to me, "Listen, you know, we really enjoyed reading," because I sent them some extracts of what I've written, and they said, "Oh my gosh, you know, you should send that to the Arts Council, you know, and see if they dig it as much as we do." And I just thought, what, really? You know, because it was at the time when everybody was applying for Arts Council grants, and I just thought, I haven't got a chance in hell. So anyway, I sent some of my work off, and to my surprise, I did get some Arts Council funding.
Oh, nice.
You know, so that's opened up you know, unimaginable doors.
From a love of writing, which I must admit I share a love of writing as well, particularly writing songs, even though I'm not very good at it. We move on to cinema, and we've touched a little bit on this, but what would you say is your favorite film and why?
So after Do the Right Thing, it's got to be Glengarry Glen Ross. You know, for me, it's just kind of like it touches on, you know, capitalism and, you know, you know, how it affects people, how, you know, it's really hard for people to make ends meet, you know. And there's a line in the film that says, you know, the third prize is you're fired. I mean, my God, you know, it's brutal, but it's very truthful at the same time, and the acting is incredible.
Interesting choice that. It's a David Mamet play, isn't it? And a stellar cast.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
Jack Lemmon, one of his finest performances.
Yeah,
Pacino's great in it. They're all good in it, aren't they?
fantastic film. Yeah, really, really good. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely advise you to, you know, to watch it.
And there's some great character names. Was it Ricky Roma? Al Pacino? I think it was Ricky Roma. Yeah.
Ricky Roma. Yeah. Really, really good.
Back to writing. Who would
Yeah.
you say is your favorite novelist?
So I'm not sure how much I can say about this, but I just got a part in a new TV series which is coming out at some point this year. So I've been reading The Sandman by Neil Gaiman.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've done many things. We've spoken about music, film, television, and so on. But if you could have had a different profession, what would it have been?
It probably would have been a job where I quite like talking to people, you know, and helping people out. And I don't know why. A hair, like a barber. Yeah, it'd have probably been a barber. Even though I can't, you know, cut hair for toffee. You know, there's something about you know, being in that environment and being able to be open. You know, I feel really kind of comfortable and open with my barber. I've got two barbers that I go to, and both of them, I'm just, you know, I'm really, you know, I could just relax and have my hair cut and talk away, you know, on politics and, you know, sometimes how you're feeling, and, you know, it's more than just a haircut.
That can come back to storytelling, because you probably listen to people from all walks of, and different backgrounds and done different kind of jobs and so on. It's probably quite interesting to hear their stories and take on
Yeah,
life in general.
absolutely. Yeah, I think they get quite a lot out of their customers as well. You know, I think for them as well, it's not just a haircut. You know, it's about getting to know somebody on a really kind of personal level.
Next, who in life would you say has been your greatest inspiration?
It's a very good question. I would say my mum.
We'll talk newspapers next. Do you read a newspaper? And if so, which one?
Not technically, no, I don't, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know. No, media diversified. I'd probably say out of them all, I'd read Media Diversified, which is online.
Talking about food next. Do you like cooking? And if so, what would you say is your favorite food?
Oxtail, rice and peas is my favorite meal. I could happily have that as my final meal. You know, if I did something incredibly naughty and, you know, I had I had, you know, one last meal before it would certainly be oxtail, rice and peas. Yeah.
The next one stumps quite a few of our guests. We asked them who their favorite cultural icon is. It could be a political figure, it could be someone from history, maybe somebody who's changed the way we live in some way. Who would you say is your favorite cultural icon?
God, yeah. My favorite cultural icon. Do you know what? I know it might be a bit of a cliche thing to say, but I would say Bob Marley. You know, because it was almost like he didn't just talk the talk; he walked the walk. You know, he lived and breathed the words that he wrote. You know, and a lot of his songs are like poetry.
We'll let you say this. If you had to choose your favorite curse word, what would it be and why?
I quite like the new ones that are popping up online. I overheard cocksatchel the other day, and I thought, oh, that's hilarious. And and cockwomble and but good old fashioned fuck is good. Can I say that?
Yeah, of course you can. You said it. Yeah. Talking about favorite place or holiday destination, where would you choose?
I would like to visit Dominica because, you know, both my parents come from there, and I've never had the opportunity to go there and, you know, and visit.
This is going to be a tricky one to ask you with such a passion for music, and you've spoken about blues, you've spoken about Bob Marley as your favorite cultural icon, but if you had to choose your favorite music artist, I think I know who you're going to choose, but who would that be, and what is your favorite album of all time?
You might be surprised, actually. So one of my favorite albums of all time, and I've loved this album ever since I was about 8 years old, is A Kick Inside by Kate Bush.
Okay, yeah. Favorite musician?
Favorite musician? There's so many. It's like,
I thought you were going to say Muddy Waters.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's Muddy Waters. It's Billie Holiday, Howlin' Wolf, Albert King. You know, but yeah, the person that I can, you know, that fits me would certainly be Muddy. But there's also something about Billie, isn't there? Do you like Billie Holiday?
Do you know what? I'm ashamed to say I don't really know a lot about her work. Beautiful voice, and I love Ella Fitzgerald as well. I don't feel I know enough about her.
Okay, yeah. I mean, there's
So
there's a universe about her. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I dig chess records. I love chess.
Yeah.
I could talk to you all day about chess records. It's, for me, it's one of the best recording labels of all time. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, it's it's completely different to Motown in all respects, but yeah, I get what you mean with that. It's yeah, there was a film about chess records, isn't? I mean, you probably know a bit more about that than I do, but
Yeah, I think there's been a couple of documentaries, and I think there was a fictional film based on Leonard and Phil chess, and I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's gone. Adrian Brody was in it. I think it's
okay,
called
yeah,
Cadillac Records. I think it was called. That looks
yeah,
at people like Bo Diddley, Muddy Waters, Chuck Berry, all those kind of prolific people that recorded on that album. Yeah, seminal album. Yeah,
mm, mm.
up in Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd love to watch that. Actually, I don't think I've seen it.
what would you say, Kirris, next is your greatest achievement to date?
Certainly becoming a father.
Just the one son or
Just the
daughter?
one son. Yeah, just
Yeah.
the one son. Tieran Buckley. He's 23 now.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
And lastly, Kirris, how do you wish to be remembered?
I tried my best. Yeah, the guy that tried his best.
Thank you kindly for joining me for your take for the last 60 minutes. I've really enjoyed our conversation because we kind of touched upon all aspects of life that's been interesting, from your kind of young early days to schooling, your close relationship and tragically losing your mum,
Yeah.
your career journey, the people you've worked with. It's just been an interesting, honest story. And thank you so much for sharing it.
Oh, well, no, thank you for having me. I really appreciated that. And yeah, it's been an interesting life so far.
And finally, how do we find out more about your work, or maybe get to see you on stage or any future projects? Is there a website? Is there a place we can go? Can we listen to the music on YouTube or
YouTube? Yep. So type in Kirris Riviere, and that's KIRRIS RIVIERE. But then obviously it's going to be on the interview, isn't it? So yeah, type in my name, and there's going to be a whole load of links that you can follow. So music on YouTube. You could follow me on my acting page via Facebook. KirrisRiviere.com is another one, but I need to update it. But yeah, I will do, because that'll now give me the incentive to update it. So follow that. And Instagram. Yeah, I'm a bit of a sucker for Instagram. I always put up stories every day, which I've just got into the habit of doing that. And I don't know why, because when the internet came out, and initially I was just thinking, oh my god, I'm never going to have that control me, and it certainly does now.
Thank you once again for joining me on Your Take, and I wish you all the very best for all your future endeavors, whether they be on film sets, in television, on stage, with the music as well, or any other endeavors. But thank you kindly.
Thank you so much. Nice one.